Jon Jones is in trouble with the law again. The UFC light heavyweight champion was arrested on Thursday in Albuquerque. He was charged with several things, among driving while intoxicated, as well as negligent use of a firearm, according to police. They found Jon Jones around 1 a.m. local time. According to police, he was clearly intoxicated, and they also found an open container in his car and also a handgun. This comes at a bad time to the UFC light heavyweight champion, as it seemed he was sort of cleaning up his career, and it seemed his career was back rolling. First of all, joining me to break down all the action and kind of give you some insight into the news is Nolan King and Mike Bong from MMAJunkie.com. First of all, Mike, what was your reaction to the news? This came at a bad time for Jon Jones, and it seemed, again, like he was really cleaning up his act. What was your initial reaction to this news?
I mean, surprised but not surprised, I guess. What can you really say about Jon Jones at this point? I mean, his rap sheet is growing deeper and deeper, and it's not a good look at if all these details that the police are alleging that we've seen in the police report are ultimately true. Seems like just incredibly reckless behavior by him. You mentioned, all the coronavirus situation is going on. Everyone's in their house. He is days out from tweeting messages, imploring everyone to take this seriously, to stay in your house and do all these things. And then it seems like he's doing kind of the antithesis of everything he was preaching. He's out there allegedly drinking and driving, allegedly firing off a gun in a seemingly quite public area. Just all these details are really not a good look for Jon Jones. If it all ends up being true, everything that's in the police report, I just really don't know how this is going to unfold for him. You're going to see all these ties back to his history and everything on that front. And I think that's really what's going to account to how he's potentially punished here is, everything he's done in the past.
Nolan, as Mike said, the police report basically said, early in the morning in Albuquerque, he was arrested. Police found a bottle of mezcal in his running car, as well as a handgun, and there was reports of gunshots. This seems a little bit more serious, obviously, involving the gun and the fact that a gun was fired, or at least allegedly. It sort of seems kind of like an escalation. What do you make of what happened with Jones? And is this something I guess the public should be concerned about him?
Yeah, I mean, it's an escalation in quality, but it's also in quantity. I mean, here we are again, deja vu. Jon Jones getting arrested for similar, issues. So, yeah, sure, the gun is a bad part of it, and it's something that's new. It's something that he hasn't done before, but it's also the fact that this was supposed to be the change Jon Jones, and we've heard this so many times before. And we're getting to the point where it's almost 2 years since something like this has happened, and then for it to come out and happen again. It's just not a good trend, and it's something like now he's back to the drawing board again, where he's going to be scrutinized publicly and somewhat rightfully so for these alleged accusations here, and it's just one of those things where does he go from here? Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time in some people's eyes, but he's kind of his own worst enemy. So it's tough, like I said, both in quality and quantity for the amount of times that this has happened and the severity. So I agree with everything that Mike said, and I guess we'll have to see how this whole thing plays out and let the court process, proceed.
And Nolan, one more for you. How much do you think this hurts his image? Because, like you said, it seemed he really cleaned things up in the last years. The last time there was an incident of this sort, it's been a bit, and it seemed again like his career was really rolling. And we've seen already a lot of fighters take a lot of shots on him, through social media. How much of a stain is this on his career and his image right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it this way, like if Jones had those issues in the past and then that was it, I think people would have come around to it and said, okay, yeah, when he's 30, through his 20s into his 30s, yeah, sure, he did some bad things, but he fixed himself, and here he is, and he went on to do great things. He went on to beat tough challengers, and the past is in the past, and he turned himself around. But here we are again, where he's not going to be able to prove that for quite some time, and the more of these things that happen, or these alleged things happen, it's going to make it harder and harder for him to recover his legacy. So he had a tough challenge ahead of him before, and now if these things turn out to be true, he's got even a bigger challenge to try to save his legacy, in my opinion.
Now, Jones has not released a statement on this. Neither has his management team. However, the UFC did say something brief. They did say that they're looking into the situation. They've reached out, and at this moment, they're just gathering all the information possible. I mean, we've seen him get stripped for these kinds of things before. Mike, what do you think will happen, and how do you think the UFC will handle this situation with Jones? Could his belt be in jeopardy?
I'm going to say no this time. I mean, I guess if the timing of something like this was going to happen where the entire sports world, UFC included, maybe this April 18th show aside, is kind of in limbo. We don't know when he was going to be fighting anyways. We don't know how long this legal issue could potentially keep him out. So I don't think they're going to come out any time in the very near future and strip him or anything like that. So maybe if things escalate, if he's convicted, if there's jail time, et cetera, maybe that comes to a decision point. But ultimately, I don't think the UFC is going to do a whole lot to Jon Jones unless their hand is forced in this situation. He is one of their biggest draws, still one of their biggest moneymakers, and I don't think they're going to jeopardize that as much as these actions or alleged actions are things that we really don't like to see from him. I think they've shown a history of being willing to continue to work with him, and kind of put those things to the side and continue booking him for fights. So I think as long as there is no legal hiccup or something like that preventing them from doing that, I think we'll see Jon Jones booked and fighting as soon as he's ready to go, as soon as he's available to do so.
Yeah, certainly a difficult situation. We'll see how it all unfolds. Guys, thank you much for the insight. I appreciate the input. This is very much still a developing situation. So to keep up with everything that's going to come, all the news and everything that's going to come out of this, please follow MMAJunkie.com, and we'll have you geared up with all the news you need.